Digest magazine. In this video, top PGA instructor Chuck Cook shows you the 7 key phases of the swing and gives you his proven method for better control and longer, straighter drives. And here's our guarantee. If Golf Digest and Cure Your Slice Now doesn't cure your slice and improve your game, cancel the subscription and keep the PGA instructor Chuck Cook shows you the 7 key phases of the swing and gives you his proven method for better control and longer, straighter drives. And here's our guarantee. If Golf Digest and Cure Your Slice Now doesn't cure your slice and improve your game, cancel the subscription and keep the video free. Every month in Golf Digest, you get easy-to-follow instruction from the best teachers and players in golf, information on the top equipment, the best places to play, and you also get the removable Pocket Tips booklet. Call now. Use your credit card and get your first risk-free issue, the Pocket Tips booklet, and the video free. You get 11 more issues for only $19.77. If your game doesn't improve, cancel your subscription and keep the video, booklet, and magazine free.
So call 800-553-4400. That's 800-553-4400 for Golf Digest.
Last half hour conversation was prompted by a report from the General Accounting Office about there being no federal requirements that nursing homes have sprinklers. The 2005 version of the National Nursing Home Survey, which lists the inspections of every nursing home in the country online that Joe alluded to toward the end of our conversation, will include fire safety inspections. In addition, the National Fire Protection Administration will likely in 2006 require nursing homes to retrofit sprinklers. The report admits it still may take years to accomplish that because of the cost to especially some of the older homes, especially in some of the rural areas. So that's where we stand on nursing homes. William Taylor joining us now, our Saints expert from our affiliate in Thibodaux. Hey, William, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. I'm enjoying this dry weather.
Where's it dry?
Oh, well, the ground ain't dry, but at least the atmosphere's dried out.
Yeah, a little bit. Hey, since Ricky isn't here today, I'm going to make you our mentalfloss.com victim.
Okay.
Okay. In what computer-animated 2001 movie did 2 characters have to make their way across a rickety bridge over a lava lake? Ice Age, Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., or Shrek?
I'll say Monsters, Inc.
Shrek is the correct answer.
Okay.
First lava lamps. You know, they're making a comeback. Have you seen them?
Yes, I have.
Were marketed in England under what brand name? Astrolamp, Motion Ocean, Liquid Light, or Brighty Blob?
I'll say Liquid Light.
I had picked Motion Ocean, and Astrolamp was the correct answer.
Okay.
Hey, we did well on that one, William.
Oh, yeah, can't wait to beat the guy on Jeopardy who's won for 29 days. So.
I can't answer any of those questions.
Well, you got to be a pretty well-rounded individual to go on that.
I'm well-rounded, but that doesn't count.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how'd you become such a big Saints fan?
By accident.
Why?
Well, because my whole life is a big accident. But anyway, no, what happened was way back when I was 9 years old, I can remember I was at Aunt Pat's house, and back then on our cable system, we used to get Channel 10 in Lafayette. They used to carry all the Saints games that would normally be blacked out.
Mm-hmm.
And the Saints and the Eagles was on, game in the Dome. And I don't know, there was something real interesting about the Saints and the game of football that I really liked. Didn't realize at the time how bad their win-loss record was historically. So 1979, I really started to see this team, analyze it a little more closely when I was 10. In fact, anybody who grew up with me at St. Charles Elementary School will tell you that. I couldn't get enough of talking about Saints football after a while. The best way I can put it to you is this. Growing up when I was a kid, I always felt that I was jinxed for one reason or another, just like the Saints. They always seemed to try, but they couldn't get a winning record for anything. I think that was the psychological bond I had with them.
You could relate.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
More than anybody could imagine. And so starting in 79, that was the first season I started following the team on its weekly sojourn through heck, I guess, some years. And growing up watching Archie Manning play and Chuck Muncie, Tony Galbraith, Wes Chandler, Henry Childs, 79 was a great offensive year. They just didn't have the defense to match the offense, and hence went 8-8. But as I got older, besides following the current issues of the team, I love to look back at history, how the team began. And I got to meet a lot of the former players and coaches as I got older. And it just was something very fascinating to me. So many great untold stories despite the losing. Mm-hmm. And that's how the bond became so close to me. Ironically, I didn't become what you and I would call a historian until about 1987, and it wasn't until 89 that I actually started collecting on a regular basis, like past memorabilia of the team, especially trading cards. I couldn't get enough of trading cards. And to this day, I've stuck with them, thankfully, and, try to save games on tape whenever I can, and nice people have given me past games along the way. So it's really become not just a hobby, but almost a real solid passion.
Now, you weren't necessarily a big football fan before your interest in the Saints then.
No, before I turned 10, I really didn't follow sports that much. I mean, if something was on television, sports-oriented, I'd sit down to watch it. But for some reason, at age 10, I guess I would have been in the 4th grade at the time, something just clicked into me, and it just became something magical ever since.
In your ever humble opinion, if you had to pick one player to epitomize the greatness of the New Orleans Saints, who would it be?
Well, in terms of ability to help provide winning seasons, it would be Ricky Jackson.
Okay.
Ricky on defense was phenomenal. Went to many Pro Bowls, played here 13 years. Ironically, didn't get a Super Bowl until he went to San Francisco back in 1994. Though my favorite growing up as a kid was Archie Manning. Yeah. He unfortunately didn't have a winning season when he played here, but he did his best under the circumstances. And as I got older, by far one of my favorite players that I got to know as a kid is a gentleman who played at McNeese State, Buford Jordan. Buford was an outstanding fullback for 7 years. Didn't get probably one of the more underrated players in Saints history. Real solid blocker, didn't carry the ball that much. And to this day, I think he's Louisiana's all-time collegiate yardage rusher.
Who played with the Saints the longest? Who was on the team for the longest?
Wow. Okay, my memory's correct because there were a handful of guys that played here for 13 years.
Right.
Ricky Jackson was one of them. I think Jim Wilkes played here for Whoops. Forgive me, Don. We lost our power.
Oh.
That's what I call live and breaking news. Well, anyway, what happened was Ricky Jackson played here 13 years. Morton Anderson was here 13 years. Jim Wilkes and Frank Warren played in 13. So did Hobie Brenner. So assuming I'm not skipping anybody, there's quite a few guys tied at the top for most years of service.
Why did Morton Anderson move on? What happened?
Well, I know you're going to laugh when I tell you this, but after 94, the Saints knew they were going to have salary cap problems going into 95, and they felt because Morton was a kicker that could be the easiest position to replace. But for some reason, Saints management felt if they waited till the opening day of training camp in mid-July to try to get Morton to take a pay cut, they figured no other team would have salary cap room to take him. So they wanted him to take a 50% pay cut. And he said, no, that I'm not going to take a pay cut any bigger than my teammates, which was about 15% at the time for Jim Everett and the other guys. Mm-hmm. So they let him go. And they thought no team had the room for him until Atlanta called. Apparently Atlanta was tipped off the day before by somebody that the Saints were going to cut him, and that's why they gave him a big 3-year contract worth about $2 million a year.
What is it about the Saints fan that through good and a lot of bad, they stand by their team? What's the secret?
I think in part because they've been the only professional game in town for a long time. And I think because people in New Orleans, and for that matter the Gulf South, want to be part of something that they think is special. You got a lot of fans to this day who've been there from year one, and they treat the Saints just like their family. And just like family, you may yell and scream at them from time to time, but deep down inside you really love them. So I think that's why you have so many fans, especially of the older generations, who can't get enough of this ball team.
What's your personal opinion of the Superdome?
Oh, I think it's a great place. You know, ironically, this will be the 30th year the Saints have played in the Superdome. Prior to that, they played their first 8 at Tulane Stadium. I think it's a grand old building. I think the Saints' argument has been that, you see, Don, when it was built in the mid-'70s, it was designed as a municipal stadium to also hold baseball.
Right.
And the problem is football-only stadiums are tighter but can hold more people. I think, you know, because the theory's always been, well, if you can just convert the inside of the dome to football only, yes, you can probably fit more seats in there. But the big problem has been that you may have to shut the dome down, and other events may have to go elsewhere if you do that. But in terms of structure and overall what you call atmosphere on game day, I've always felt the Dome's a great place.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you don't realize how high that dome is. If you've never been in there, you've got to go in there, and you go, oh, my God. I mean, you feel like an ant.
I tell you what, want me to tell you a funny story about when the Dome first opened?
Yeah.
Well, the very first Saints preseason game was a Saturday night game in there, and Vivian Lee from Prairie View A&M was one of their punt returners, and he wasn't used to the lights in the Superdome, and he dropped the football and fumbled it. When the game was over, the reporters asked him, what was the problem with the punt? And he said, well, the lights were in my way, but you won't have to worry about that next time. And one reporter said, well, what do you mean you don't have to worry about that next time? He goes, well, our next home game's in the daytime.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Dome was kind of controversial. That was Governor McKithen's idea, was it not?
He was one of the men.
Yeah, and he really pushed for it, and it came in over budget. Came in, what, $93 million, start out at 70-something?
Yeah, the original cost was supposed to be $46.7
million. That low, okay.
And it turned out to be $162.
Oh, my
However, what a lot of people don't know is this. The actual building cost was $110 million. The remaining $52 million, believe it or not, that was money the state spent on fighting lawsuits that people were filing against the Superdome thinking it was going to ruin business in New Orleans.
Oh, goodness sake.
Yes, that's how much money the state spent on that.
I had no idea. Well, we got a break coming up. When we come back, I want to talk about the history of the Saints, how New Orleans got a football team, and before the Saints arrived, how long had efforts been underway in the Crescent City to bring a professional football team there, and then how did the Saints get there? There was an owner of the Saints before Tom Benson, and William Taylor, I guess, from our affiliate in Thibodaux, going to bring us up to date on all that. This is Louisiana Live on the internet at www.louisianalive.net. We'll be right back.
How would you like to mingle with golf pros at major tour events or talk candidly with them in the locker room and get the story behind the story? Well, now there's a magazine that takes you where the news is breaking. A different kind of magazine, not found on newsstands. Golf World, the #1 news magazine in golf. Golf World brings you in-depth coverage of all the major tournaments more than 40 times a year, weekly during peak season. Coverage that starts months in advance of the Masters and continues through to the PGA Championship follow-up. Take a close-up look at tour players having a breakthrough year. Golf World takes you inside their game and explores the secrets of their success. Order your 1-year subscription to Golf World. You'll get more than 40 news-breaking issues for just $31.77. That's 40% off the regular subscription price. Order now and get a copy of 10 swings from the tour free with your paid subscription.
Call now, 800-850-4300. That's 800-850-4300.
What's in the bag?
You buy something,
I got a great deal.
and soon you realize
I can't believe you bought that.
it's no bargain. You needed something better, but you can get the right auto coverage at the right price from a State Farm agent you can count on. Call today. Find out why more people trust State Farm for car insurance.
You still got the receipt.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Providing insurance and financial services.
For car insurance that fits your needs and budget, contact your local State Farm agent.
If you think it sounds romantic to walk down the railroad tracks or sounds like an adventure to hop a freight car, think again. It only takes a moment for that romantic adventure to turn into a nightmare, and it's one you may never wake up from. I'm Pam Tillis, asking you to remember that playing around on railroad tracks and trains is illegal, but most of all, it's deadly. Take safety to heart. Always expect a train.
Look, listen, and live. A message from Operation Lifesaver in this station.
Visiting with our Saints expert, William Taylor, in Thibodaux, and want to go back to before the Saints came to the Crescent City. What did New Orleans have, as far as sports are concerned, besides Tulane, UNO, and Xavier?
Well, by far, long before the Saints, their biggest professional draw was the New Orleans Pelicans, which was a minor league affiliate of the Pittsburgh Pirates. They go back to, I think, the early 20s, and they stayed in New Orleans through about 59. The great Mel Parnell was their last manager, longtime Boston Red Sox pitcher. Well, unfortunately, a lot of those southern teams went out of business by the end of the early 60s, and from 60 to 66, New Orleans had hosted many different NFL and AFL exhibition contests, either at the old City Park Stadium or at Tulane Stadium. And the city was really trying to bring pro football back. In fact, a quick story, Dave Dixon, the entrepreneur who's really responsible for bringing pro football to New Orleans, he had a chance at two different professional teams, AFL teams, in 1962. The Dallas Texans were owned by Lamar Hunt. He was considering moving them out of Dallas because of competition from the Cowboys. And Dave Dixon really wanted them to move to New Orleans, but the problem was Tulane Stadium would not lift their ban on alcohol sales. So that's why they became the Kansas City Chiefs in '63. Oh. Mr. Dixon was also in line to buy the Oakland Raiders because during the '62 season, their majority owner had passed away. Only problem was a couple of Mr. Dixon's minority owners backed out on him about a day or two before the scheduled meeting to buy the team. So he lost out, and Al Davis got to buy the team and kept him in Oakland, of course. But in either case, there was an unofficial deal to name the team the New Orleans Saints if they were to play in New Orleans in '63.
Well, how did that come about?
Well, real quick, also what happened, in January of '65, New Orleans was supposed to host the AFL All-Star Game. The only problem was a lot of the black players were not being allowed in some of the restaurants in the French Quarter, and they had a protest. They said they didn't want to play in the game. So they called Commissioner Joe Foss of the AFL, and he said that, well, if they don't want to serve you guys, then we'll move the game. And they moved it to Houston on 6 days' notice.
I had never heard that.
January of 1965. In fact, Ernie Ladd was part of that team. He can probably tell you better than me. And what had happened, New Orleans realized they had to change some laws on the books before they were going to get a pro team. So in 1966, the NFL wanted to merge with the AFL, but the government didn't want to allow it because it looked like a monopoly. So our two U.S. senators, Russell Long and Alan Ellender, in addition to U.S. representatives such as Hale Boggs, they made a deal with Commissioner Pete Rozelle that if they could get a limited antitrust exemption, sorry, I can't talk today, but a limited antitrust exemption passed through Congress for the NFL, would they give New Orleans the next franchise? And Pete Rozelle agreed. So they were able to sneak that through a bill, gave the NFL their antitrust exemption, a limited antitrust exemption, and later in '66, I think it was on October 21, '66, is when that was passed, and on November 1, '66, it was announced New Orleans would get the next team. Expansion team.
Yeah.
And the name Saints was all along considered to be the front runner, but the Times-Picayune went ahead and had a contest, and by far the most responses they got by mail was the nickname Saints. And a gentleman, I believe his name was Mr. Roland Email, he had the winning ballot. He wrote Saints, and he gave a very detailed reason as to why it should be called the Saints, and hence the name was officially indoctrinated, I think, in January of '67.
What were some of the runners-up?
I think Crawdads was one. I think Nutria was another. Muskrats was another. I think, like in salute to Andrew Jackson, somebody wanted to call them the Jackson Airs.
Nobody wanted to call them the Hurricanes, though, huh?
I don't think so, ironically.
What are your thoughts there? There are some folks who say that if the Saints really want to get support from around the state, and they have an outreach program with a couple of ticket offices, but rather than say New Orleans Saints, change the name to Louisiana Saints. Think that would do any good?
Well, what they tried to do when Tom Benson bought the team in '85 from John Meekum, he tried a modified version of that. What he did, he changed the logo on the hip portion of the pants to have a fleur-de-lis with the state of Louisiana on it. And they also had the same logo on the sleeves. And the new slogan in '85 was the new New Orleans Saints for all of Louisiana.
Well, that seems like it would satisfy everybody.
Yeah, and it did, because that was his tribute to the state legislature helping him out at that time. And they gradually changed that philosophy because some of the marketing people felt that, well, you know, if we're going to try to sell this team nationwide, that New Orleans is probably more well-known than the whole state.
That's true.
So they kind of backed off on being Louisiana, but then when Arnold Philco and them came in 2000, who, of course, is the head of non-football administration, they tried to promote this more as a Gulf South team from the Texas-Louisiana border all the way to the Florida Panhandle. And so they've been trying to really recruit new season ticket fan bases that way, kind of like the way the New England Patriots do it up there. Of course, they've won a couple Super Bowls, but anyway.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So Meekum was the first owner.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, he still to this day is the youngest owner in NFL history, age 27.
How much did he pay?
$8 million.
That's pauper's money.
Right. In fact,
Today.
Today is about $700 million, but I'll show you how much the money has jumped. 67, it was $8 million.
Mm-hmm.
In 76, it had only jumped up to $16 million when Seattle and Tampa Bay joined the league. In 95, when Carolina and Jacksonville joined, it was $300 million.
My God.
Yeah.
You would think it would be the other way around, that you would dilute the strength of the economic impact, but it works just the other way.
Yeah, that having an NFL franchise is not that easy. The league realizes that there's a lot of prestige, and that's why they basically need to today find billionaires to get these teams.
Yeah, and pay the players.
Yeah.
Boy. They used to pay radio people that well. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
It's only a story someone made up many moons ago.
Mm.
Hey, William Taylor's our guest talking Saints and Saints history here on Louisiana Live. Check us out on the internet with audio streaming at www.louisianalive.net, and we will be right back.
In today's world, it seems like we're being asked to settle for less. Well, just don't do it. Don't ever get stuck with less. If you want more, get more at the Dodge Summer Sales Drive. Get a combined $4,500 cash allowance on all Ram 1500 pickups when you finance through Chrysler Financial, like the limited edition Hemi-powered Bighorn Ram with 20-inch wheels. Or qualified lessees can grab a great lease deal on Dodge Ram ST Quad Cab for just $248 a month for 36 months with $2748 due at signing. Tax, title, and license extra. Plus, get our 7-year, 70,000-mile powertrain limited warranty. If you're satisfied with less, don't look here. If you want more, get more at the Dodge Summer Sales Drive. Grab the best selection of the Dodge vehicles you want now, only at your Southern Dodge dealer. Call 888-4-DODGE for details. Financing for qualified buyers. Not all buyers will qualify. Offer requires dealer contribution of $23.71. Residency restrictions apply. Must take retail delivery by 8/31/04. See dealer for a copy of this limited warranty. Transferable to a second owner with a fee and deductible applies. Offer excludes SRT 10.
We're back at the LaPlace 250, and our leader is still McGee. DP, can he hold on?
I think so, Jake, but he's going to have to pit for fuel on that low tire. All right, boys, this is a race to the finish. Go, go, go. Roll in those guys. Quick, gas. Move it. Johnson, what's that in your hand?
A race to the finish scratch-off, Chief.
What? I know it's a race to the finish. Get that tire.
All right, Chief. $10,000?
Wait. Johnson, tell me you put on all the lug nuts.
Play Race to the Finish, the new $2 scratch-off from the lottery. Win up to $10,000. Win up to 10 times on each ticket. Race on down to your nearby lottery retailer and ask for Race to the Finish today. Win up to $10,000.
We're in the final stretch. McGee's going to win it. Wait, his right tire's coming off. Oh, what a bad break for McGee. There's the checkered flag, and Jeff Burgess wins.
Play Race to the Finish today. Win up to $10,000. Must be at least 21 to purchase.
And don't forget the lug nuts.
A state board that approves loans and grants to businesses may scale back its 2004-05 meeting schedule because $9.5 million raid on economic development funds by state lawmakers have left it with so little money, there's no reason to meet. Board of the Louisiana Economic Development Corporation could begin meeting only every other month because they've got so little money left to give away, according to one New Orleans lawyer. Legislative grab of LEDC funds, including $7.5 million to fund the state's commitment to the Saints and $2 million for other projects. So there's somebody casting stones at the Saints. The legislature did what they had to do, William, in your humble opinion?
Yeah, it was a tough call, only because, of course, the contract was done, I think, 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I really hate to see them come to the point where they have to borrow or take money from other divisions of state government to do it.
But Benson said a deal's a deal.
A deal's a deal, and that's the one rough side of business is that sometimes tough decisions have to be made. See, I hate to sound political. I've always been libertarian at heart.
Okay.
I believe people need to do things on their own as much as possible.
Well, you and I agree on something then.
Yeah, and I realize it's not an easy move for a lot of people out there, and but I guess it just had to be done.
All right. I was hoping Ricky was going to be here today because we're going to quiz you, but since Ricky is out, I got to ask you about Vanessa.
Thank you.
Who in the world is Vanessa?
Well, Vanessa, shall we say, was created back in mid-November. Okay. I don't have time to go into the whole story, but basically she became my radio girlfriend. and she's kind of a character who always seems to get me in really crazy situations for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the plot lines was that she got tired of her job working as she was a supervisor in a factory that made spark plugs for diesel engines. Okay, good, you got that.
All right, got it, yeah.
And so then she decided she wanted to leave that job and work with me as the first ever American radio magician.
There you go.
And
watch the radio real close.
Exactly. And but right now the latest plot is I'm afraid she's giving me an ultimatum. It's either her or the Weather Channel. She thinks I'm watching the Weather Channel too much because she's convinced I have a crush on meteorologist Stephanie Abrams.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
Hello.
So anyway, her and I have worked out a compromise that I can still watch the Weather Channel whenever I want, as long as I don't make fun of her when she wears her silly beret that was given to her by her cousin Angie.
Now that makes sense.
Yeah, so
sounds like a reasonable deal.
That's our relationship. Me and Vanessa are full of compromise, and we always have something incredible happens in our relationship. And I have to say this, since I started doing this, the listeners I've spoken with and emailed me have really enjoyed this. And, because there's always something funny in a relationship when you look real good at it.
Oh, yeah. Now, where'd you come up with the name Vanessa? Got less than a minute.
Well, I hate to give away the secret.
Well, don't then. Is it a family meaning, or is it kind of just a sexy meaning? Or
it's well, I don't want to give away all the mystery. But,
all right, don't.
Let's just say sometimes when I'm staying up late at night and watching television, some inspirations can come that way.
Okay. You have cable?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, okay, we know.
But not HBO or Showtime.
William, it's been a hoot. We will talk again.
Well, thank you, and hope everything goes well.
All right, we appreciate it. William Taylor, our in-house, more or less, expert on the New Orleans Saints from our affiliate in Thibodaux. William, thanks for being with us. Later this week, we're going to talk about Florida. Is the vote in 2004 going to be similar to 2000? Elliot Stonecipher and Professor Richard Scher will be here. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow.
In today's world.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, outside here in beautiful West Wego, we're with the gentleman who we're glad to see back in Louisiana, who does come to visit Louisiana but time to time, but we got a lot of good memories of him with the Saints, the Chargers, and we're going to talk about going on today and yesterday. Chuck Muncie, how are you?
Very good, very good. It's great to be back. And William, I just want people to know that you've been my contact here in New Orleans for a very long time, and I appreciate it.
Well, we don't want to forget about you, and but it's hard to forget about you when you look back at your career. But to start from the beginning, you're actually from Pennsylvania?
Uniontown, Pennsylvania, a little small town about 60 miles southwest of Pittsburgh and about 24 miles east of West Virginia.
Wow. And Western Pennsylvania, almost the football breeding ground of America.
Absolutely. I tell people all the time, I say, although we didn't play against each other directly, but in my conference, you had guys like Tony Dorsett, Joe Montana, Jim Kelly, Marino, and the names just go on and on and on about the athletes that came out of that area.
Very much so. Now, how did you end up from Pennsylvania and go to school at the University of California?
Well, I was being heavily recruited by a lot of schools. I mean, from the Big Ten to the Pac-8, you name it, I was being recruited. But my junior year in high school, and then my senior year in high school, I had an injury, and where I had a concussion about the third game into the season, had a concussion and temporary amnesia. My mom would not let me play football anymore. So, the hot recruiting thing, I got real nervous and sort of died out. And but I knew I wanted to play football. I knew I wanted to play, go to college and what have you. And back in 1970, 71, freshmen weren't able to play varsity football. You were on the JV team. Well, I was one of the schools I was being recruited by was Stanford on the West Coast, and Roger Theater and Mike White, who was assistant head coach under Ralston, the guys are the two guys who recruited me there. And they suggested that I go to a junior college in Yuma, Arizona, called Arizona Western Junior College, what was probably the best move that I ever could have made. And I went to school there, got closer to the West Coast, by coming from Pennsylvania going to Arizona Western. They kind of tricked me into going to Arizona Western. They sent me this beautiful brochure. And being from Uniontown, Pennsylvania, it's either hot or cold and snow or raining. and population about 7,000 people at that time. But they sent me this brochure, and it said, Oasis in the Desert, come to Arizona Western Junior College. I mean, they showed this beautiful green grass, palm trees, and what have you. And I said, wow. And they had a very strong program. And I decided to go to JC out there. And I'll never forget, first time I ever been on an airplane in my life, really, and flew out to visit, to go to school. And that picture that they sent me, this brochure, the piece of the plot of grass was about 5 by 5. Wow. And they had spray painted it green. But it was a great program. I ended up going to school there. We ended up being number 2 in the country, JUCO, and then I was heavily recruited again by the Pac-8 and Stanford. John Ralston was the head coach of Stanford at the time, and they were going to the Rose Bowl. And he invited me to come and spend a week with when recruiting was different and the rules were different back then, spend a week with the University of Stanford in L.A. the week of the Rose Bowl. And so I did. I accepted that invitation and flew out. And it was a great experience. I never seen so many people. I'm standing on the sideline at the Rose Bowl. Stanford's playing Ohio State. There's Woody across the field. There's John Ralston, and there's 150,000 people in the stands. And Ralston looked at me in his voice and he goes, "Son, do you think you could play football here? Would you like to play in front of a crowd like this?" Wow. And I said, "Yes, sir." And that off season, what happened? So they offered me a scholarship. That off season, what happened? Ralston took the coaching job at Stanford. Up at Denver with the Broncos. Right. And Mike White, who was his assistant head coach at Stanford, got the head coaching job at Cal Berkeley. And so that's how I ended up coming from Pennsylvania, Arizona, to Cal Berkeley. Wow. And that's it. It was a long trip, believe me.
And then you end up all the way. Now, did you end up playing 3 years at Cal?
Yes, I played 3 years at Cal. I was All-American all 3 years at Cal. Still hold all the records, rushing records and touchdown records at Cal, which is unfortunate because I hope that one day they'll get somebody to break those records because that means they'll be a better team. Right. But I still was there, and it was the thing that was runner-up for the Heisman. Right. Cal was just a great experience.
Well, who beat you out for the Heisman that year?
Archie Griffith beat me for that year. Archie, it was his second year, and we were actually coming off of probation. Cal Berkeley had been on probation when I was there, but I played 3 years at Cal, and it was probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me.
And think about it. The only thing more historic than you're running for the Heisman Trophy was the lateral play 7 years later with Stanford.
Exactly, so there's always something there, and, I was the first and only player to this day to be from UC Berkeley while still in college to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So, it was an illustrious career in college. Played with some great athletes. Steve Barkowski was the quarterback. Vince Ferragamo was there before he went to Nebraska. We had Wesley Walker, Ted Albrecht, who was with the Chicago Bears, Dallas Hickman with the Washington Reds, Herman Edwards, who we all know, head coach with the Jets. I tell you, it was a group of some talented athletes.
And then Hank Stram comes to New Orleans in '76, and he picks you the #1 pick. And a lot of young people don't realize that in the '70s, the NFL didn't have the fanfare with draft day like they do now. Right. Where were you when you got the call?
I was home. I was at my home actually in Berkeley, and basically waiting. Because it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't on TV. It wasn't a big thing to do. It was basically, sit around and wait to see who called you. And I had just woke up. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning. I just woke up, and Hank calls me, and I knew who Hank Stram was, but I really didn't know he had become the head coach of the Saints. And he calls up and he goes, "We got you." And and I go, "Who's this?" And he goes, "This is Hank Stram of the New Orleans Saints. I just want to let you know we picked you as our #1 draft pick, and we'd like for you to fly into New Orleans," and blah blah blah. Just went on from there.
It's interesting. Wayne Mack, many years later, wrote a book called Saga of the Saints. And he talked about your being drafted by the Saints. And I think your original contract back then was something like 7 years for a total of $1 million?
It was a 5-year deal.
Okay.
It was a 5-year deal. It was a $1.6 million spread out over 5 years.
Okay.
And a signing bonus of I think about $300,000.
I bring it up because Wayne Mack said in the book, someone asked John Meekum about your contract after it was signed, and he said, for the first time in my life, I have an employee that gets paid more than me.
I doubt that. But John didn't need to be paid. He owned the team. So, but that was an interesting comment. And you're right. That was a big contract back in those days. But you know, the funny thing now that we do a comparison, I think what I made on a yearly basis is the minimum now in the NFL. But you know, back then, that was the first $1 million contract.
Wow. And then with, I won't say with luck, but with good scouting, the second round pick that year is Tony Galbraith. And for 4 full seasons together, y'all just seem to be almost unstoppable.
I tell you, you know, Tony was sensational. I mean, you talk about a guy that could play the game and had more skills and had the ability to run the ball, catch the ball, throw the ball. And people don't know he was a great basketball player also. And but you talk about a well-rounded athlete, and to have someone like Tony in the backfield with me, when you got two guys that are over 6'2" and you know 230, 245, and with the skills, we were very exciting, group of guys. I mean,
and the only handicap those 2 years under Hank Stram was that poor Archie Manning was hurt all of '76, only played in and out of 10 games in '77. And while I know guys like Bobby Scott and Bobby Douglas did the best they could, talking to Hank, I think it's too bad Archie wasn't healthy for both years. That would have been one even better of an offense than what it was.
Absolutely, and that was one of the things that we were disappointed in. You know, coming from a program like Cal Berkeley and playing with a quarterback like Steve Barkowski, and there was another guy by the name of Joe Roth who wasn't too bad either, who unfortunately passed away of cancer after his senior season. And I tell people, you might not have heard of Joe Montana if Joe Roth would have been drafted. Believe me, he was that good. But, you know, with Archie being hurt those first 2 years, Hank really had to rely on us, Tony and myself, to really produce. And it helped my career immensely over the years. I mean, it made me mature quicker and learn what I had to do. But we weren't ready. I mean, offensively, we just didn't have the guy, the leader who we were all looking forward to playing with. He just wasn't there enough for us.
All right. You know, it's we can go on about everybody you've worked with, and my particular memory, the '79 game on Monday night against Oakland, a first half that was almost unstoppable. But I wanted to ask about one of the funny stories we heard along the years. Someone told me in '79, I think for a preseason game, y'all were ready to go out on the field in the concourse of the Superdome, and that wasn't it before the game, somebody was driving a forklift with some pipes on it, and one of them rolled off and hit Clarence Chapman in the back of the head.
Yes, that's true.
That did happen.
It did happen. It really did happen, and we ended up, he was hurt pretty bad.
Man.
Yeah, and we ended up, Felton. You know, they had to put Felton in, and you know, as a rookie against a guy like Cliff Branch.
Yeah.
I mean, it was eventually we jumped out on top of those guys. What was it, 35-7 or something like that at halftime, and you know, our first time ever the Saints being on Monday Night Football, and here's Howard Cosell and Dandy Don up in the booth, and you talk about being excited, but. You know, we thought we had a great opportunity, and if we would have won that game, we would have made the playoffs.
Yep. And another story that happened, in '76, for half a season, the Saints play-by-play announcer with Wayne Mack was Dick Butkus. Now, there was a story, they said, that some of the players had to go out of the locker room before the game because Butkus was out in the hallway trying to get on the elevator to go to the press box, and some fan was down there somehow giving him a hard time, and he almost tore the guy open. And some of the players had to come out of the locker room to separate him off the guy.
Yeah, you know, there was always something going on with Butkus down there. I tell you, the guy, you know, he was such a loved player, and when people saw him, they didn't know how to act, especially down in New Orleans. We have such rampant and excitable fans down here that, you know, you saw a Hall of Famer, and here's Dick Butkus, and they went over, and he was trying to go to work, and Dick is not a real smiley, touchy-feely kind of guy, and if someone put their hands on him, you know, it would be very unfortunate for that person.
And then you go to San Diego in '80, traded after the 4th game when you came back from Miami.
Right.
A game that y'all should have won, but they wrongfully called pass interference on Ike Harris in the end zone.
Exactly. That was a very, I think that was, well, that whole season was, was stunk for the Saints. And, yeah, they told me, we had some dissension between, Rosenblum and myself. And, Eddie Jones was really trying to do his best to work things out at that time. And, but I was frustrated, I think, with what was going on. Coming from a program that was, somewhat successful in college, and then, not having Archie the first 2 years, and then all of a sudden, in '79, we did have, a pretty decent, decent season.
Yeah.
We were starting to gel. Dick Nolan had come in and done some good stuff, and then, they made a couple trades and got rid of some people just when we were starting to build. And in 1980, I think I just hit my limit with them, and I asked to be traded, and they told me they would never trade me.
Yeah.
But when we came back from Miami, here was Tank Younger and Johnny Sanders, basically out on the tarmac, the runway.
Right.
The door couldn't open fast enough. They were waiting at the bottom of the stairs from the plane for me, and the Saints hadn't even told me I was traded.
Wow.
And I get there, and then Tank Younger goes, "We got you in San Diego."
Man.
And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, we traded for you," and because they sat me down the fourth quarter of that game.
Okay.
And I guess the trade took place during the fourth quarter, but that was something that I wasn't privy to. They didn't tell me, and that was typical back in those days. But I was a little disappointed. I was very sad to leave.
Right.
Some my friends and teammates. More so my friends like Tony and stuff. But we stayed in touch and went on to San Diego, and the rest is history after that. When you get to San Diego and you had guys like, I kind of felt like I died and gone to heaven when I got out there because of all the skilled guys and the talent that they had.
Boy, you talking about Dan Fouts and Charlie Joyner, Kellen Winslow, and Louis Kelcher on defense. Leroy Jones, I think was another. So you had a great playoff run on the doorstep of the Super Bowl in freezing Cincinnati.
I tell you, that game, it was, that was the coldest game in the history of the NFL. I think the wind chill was 59 below zero and stuff. And unfortunately, we threw one too many picks that day. And but it was one of those things where every time we were in the playoffs with the Chargers, if I got a 100-yard game, we won.
Mm-hmm.
It was automatic. We knew we won. Well, that game, unfortunately, I got 99 yards. That game, and Dan threw, I think, 6 interceptions, and it was freezing cold. Roselle actually tried to call the game before it started, but the owner of the Bengals, he knew that was the only opportunity they had to beat us, and because we had played them earlier in the season. And matter of fact, we had played both Super Bowl teams that year and beat them both.
Man.
And so it was unfortunate, but yeah, we probably should have had 3 rings.
Yeah. And then let's fast forward because, today you seem to be doing pretty well. You've got the Youth Foundation out there in California, and I guess you better tell everybody why you're back in this case, West Wego today.
Well, the Chuck Muncie Youth Foundation has partnered up with a group out of New York called Northeast Sports Group, the Ultimate Football Camp, and we sort of met when a couple years ago when I was doing the combines with a company that we had started called MSL Combines, where we did evaluations of players across the country. We met these guys back at the AFCA deal, American Football Coaches Association convention in Orlando, and they told me about this concept they had about college coaches coming to a camp and coaching up some kids, and not only coaching them, but also having the educational and the academic, part of the process with these kids, and exposing them to leadership skills, educational information, financial aid information, and it wasn't just for the athlete, but for the parents and the coaches also. And I thought that was a very unique concept. And I visited one of their camps in Syracuse, New York, and I was very highly impressed with what they do. And so we got together and said, well, let's go down to New Orleans. We've done 12 of these basically across the country. We did one in California out there with me a couple weeks ago, about a week and a half ago, and then we came back here, and I had a great opportunity to come down here for me to do another camp here. And so we've partnered up through the Chuck Muncie Foundation and this group, and we've been able to raise some sponsorship money to sponsor kids, who qualify. And I'm not just talking about economically, someone who doesn't have the ability to pay, but kids who qualify academically, in leadership, social skills, being a contributing member of society and the whole thing. So there was a big thing that came along with this, and we just wanted to do something here.
You've done a lot for a lot of good folks over the years. I realize since you're in California, a lot of the New Orleans folks may not be totally aware of it, especially with the Youth Foundation and all. And it's good to know that you were able to overcome some of the problems in your life and turn into a lot of positivity for a lot of the young people.
Absolutely. I mean, despite what happened with me with the drug use and going to prison and what have you, I, as a young person, was given an opportunity by someone to to live my dream, become a football player, go to college, get an education, play professional football. And there was a person who stepped up. And that was really the concept after my time in prison, and really clearing up my head and, doing some, self-talk and self-thinking and evaluating my life. It was something that we came up with in 1990. We've been in operation for 14 years. Our whole organization is based on volunteerism and giving back, and so, it's something that's really special to me. And I tell people, and the one thing we're real proud of, no one has ever taken a paycheck in my organization. Everyone volunteers, including myself, and all of our staff and volunteers just do a wonderful job.
Wow. Well, it's good to know that you're surrounded by a lot of good people today, here and in California, and thanks for all the memories, and we're so glad that you're still being a productive member of society. Hopefully, as people listen to this tape, and I save it for the archives, that will eventually get you in that Saints Hall of Fame down the road.
Well, that would be great. And William, like I said in the beginning, I want to thank you for sticking with me and keeping me in the loop, so to speak, and never letting these people down here forget who I am.
Take care. Well, take care now.
Okay, buddy. Thank you.
Nothing in an Eastern Conference tiebreaker before losing to the Bears 41-21 in the next week's title game. 1944 had the Packers returning to glory 14-7 over New York. 1945 saw the Cleveland Rams under coach Adam Walsh squeak out a win over the Redskins 15-14 in what was called the Hay Game, because in a failed attempt to keep the damp field from freezing the night before, countless bales of hay were spread all over Municipal Stadium. Much of the hay wound up sticking to the field surface. The play that ended up giving the Rams the win was in the first quarter. Redskins quarterback Sammy Baugh attempted to throw a pass from his own end zone, only to have the pass hit the back of the goalpost, then on the goal line, and land in the end zone, which at the time was a safety. The rule would be changed the next season to an incomplete pass. The remainder of the 1940s went as follows. 1946, Chicago Bears over New York, 24-14. 1947, Eastern Conference playoff, Eagles over Steelers, 21-0. The 47 League Championship, Cardinals over Eagles, 28-21. 1948, Eagles 7, Cardinals nothing. 1949, Eagles 14, Rams nothing. The Eagles were led by Coach Greasy Neal and running back Steve Van Buren. 1950 saw both conferences having playoff games. The Western Conference, LA Rams 24, Bears 14. Eastern Conference, Cleveland Browns 8, Giants 3. The championship matchup had the Browns, a new member of the NFL, having won all 4 All-American Football Conference championships, hosting the former Cleveland team, the Rams. Here's how the first 2 plays sounded on radio.
Bob Kelly speaking to you directly from Municipal Stadium in Cleveland. And here's Lou Groza kicking off. It's a high with a short spinning kick. B.T. Smith waiting for it, takes it from the Rams' 5-yard line. Cuts to his left at the 10. He's being chased and retreats a little bit back to the 9. Gets away at the 15. Skirts the sideline, forced out of bounds just short of the 20-yard line. Making about the 18, where it'll be the Rams' ball, 1st and 10. So here's the Rams' offensive lineman. Waterfield's in the quarterback. Glenn Davis at left half. B.T. Smith at right half. They corner it full. 1st and 10. Right halfback. Smith in motion to the right. Waterfield fades back to pass. Fades way back to his 8. Looks once. Throws long. Davis is out in front. Catches it on the 50. I believe he's going to score a touchdown. The 35, the 30, the 25, the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5. And he's over, and the Rams are out in front 6-0. What do you know about that? On the first play of scrimmage of the ball game.
In the end, Cleveland won 30-28 on a Lou Groza field goal. Here's Coach Paul Brown's comments on the great kicker.
Well, I think if I had to give you a guy that embodied as much that I value in a pro football player as anybody I know of, I'd say Lou Groza. It's obvious he couldn't give it up, even when he probably should have been away from it. He loved it. It was fun to him, a pleasure. This game throws a chill to some people when they get to play. They like the money and all that goes with it, but the other part, Louis enjoyed it. He liked being around the fellas, and this was his life, and I understand these kind of people.
Now here's the closing moments as retold by former Browns announcer Bob Neal.
First and 10 on the 22. 50 seconds remain. Graham passing to Bumgardner. Can Rex get it? He's out there. He's got it. Out of bounds at about the 11. The clock stops again. 45 seconds left. Here's Otto Graham trying to set up a field goal. Possibility moving the ball in the sneak. Less than 30 seconds remaining. Browns on the 16-yard line. Tommy James kneeling on the 16. The wind is blowing. It's cold. Here's the pass in center. James putting it down. Groza boots it. It's up in the air. It's heading towards the goalpost, and it is good. And the Browns lead now 30-28 with 20 seconds left.
The Rams came back in 1951 at Los Angeles, 24 to 17, as Tom Fears caught the winning touchdown pass, as told by announcer Harry Wismer.
The play of the day, and possibly the play of the year in postgraduate football. Norman Van Brockman goes back. Arches a long, fine, high, spiraling pass far downfield. Tom Fears makes a great catch on the dead run and goes all the way to score for Los Angeles. A 72-yard touchdown play. Rams 23, Browns 17. The extra point, waiting for the snap. The ball's in the ground. The kick is through the upright. Los Angeles 24, Cleveland 17.
This gave Coach Joe Stidehar the title over the legendary Paul Brown. It was also the first NFL championship game on national TV carried by the Dumont Network. Cleveland appeared in the next 4 championship games. In 1952, Detroit beat L.A. in the Western Conference playoff 31-21 before downing the Browns 17-7, giving Coach Buddy Parker a title. In 1953, Detroit repeated over Cleveland 17-16. 1954 proved to be the Browns' year with a lopsided 56-10 win over the Lions, and in 1955, Cleveland handed it to the Rams 38-14. The Browns' dominance stopped there as the New York Giants started one of their own most famous eras in 1956 with a 47-7 win over the Bears under coach Jim Lee Howell. 1957's Western Conference playoff was much more interesting than the championship game. The San Francisco 49ers had a 24-7 halftime lead in their home park over Detroit, who was without quarterback Bobby Lane. Here's Detroit's star, Jack Christensen.
Francisco was so confident that they were going to win the ball game that I think that they brought champagne to the locker room. And the 2 locker rooms in Old Kezar Stadium were just about 10 feet apart, the doors where you went into the locker rooms. And naturally, if I was the head on a team 24-7, I think we'd be celebrating. And I think that's what San Francisco was doing. And I think that we heard a little bit of the celebration and then found out later from some of the players that they weren't drinking the champagne, naturally, but they were very confident they were going to be opening the champagne, and that their wives had already spent the championship money for fur coats and houses and cars and so on.
After a long run by Hugh McElhaney set up a field goal, it was 27-7 early in the third quarter. Detroit would come back, scoring 24 unanswered points in a 31-27 win. 49ers coach Frankie Albert remembered the outcome very well in this interview many years afterwards.
I suppose we were happy as could be at 24-7 to be leading, and Christensen probably heard that and figured that we thought the game was over. The follow-up tragedy, we didn't know at the time. The Browns that year had a weaker ball club than Paul Brown usually had, And Detroit beat them like 56 with Bobby Lane, 56-14 or something. So had we gotten in 1957, if we'd gotten in there, we could, you know, had a good chance to beat the Brownies and win it all. But it had to be the most quiet damn locker room you'd ever find. You know, what can guys say when you lose? Everybody feels lousy.
Detroit would go on to win the championship.